But I also knew that I had to prove myself, and much like Taylor said, every day. And there's no room for error, there's no room for mistakes. You can't say a name wrong, you can't get a stat wrong. And I'm in the opinion space, so you definitely can't get anything wrong because everyone assumes that you are saying this, you mean this. So, but you know what? I don't have any bitterness about it. Was always going to be a hard business to break into and to separate. And I feel really grateful to be able to work in the business. I feel like everything that I've accomplished in the business gives me a seat at the table that is met with respect.
How does she get that job? How does she even get that opportunity? Because she's got a big pair of cans, and she's, according to Sheen, she's willing to let people enjoy those big cans of hers.
And there it is. It took you long enough.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
And there it is. Listen, I wasn't going to make another video about this, but there's this huge wave right now across social media, but more specifically TikTok. And a couple of things I saw on YouTube of people crying sexism and misogyny for the reaction to Joy Taylor, specifically Joy Taylor, being named in a lawsuit.
So let's just be real about it. Are we ever going to live in a world that is completely free of sexism and racism? Probably not. We're probably never going to know what that looks like. It just is what it is. You know, is it regressive for some people who feel as though they want to work hard to climb the ladder? You know, by their definition of hard. Sure. But let's look at it from a different perspective, because a lot of people who are angry about this are mad that they can't do it or that they don't know how to do it. Like, let's just be real about it. Half of the men that are just like, oh, Joy, you know, she's, you know, calling her out her name, saying she's promiscuous, etc. They're just upset that they could never. They could never. Most men can't sleep their way to the top. The top of a system that men built, by the way. Y'all built it and y'all are mad that y'all can't take advantage of a system that y'all put in place. Y'all put the system in place. And y'all are mad at women for taking advantage of a system that y'all put in place?
Right. And we're just going to overlook the fact that it is said in this lawsuit by a woman that Joy Taylor allegedly or supposedly said that she was going to pull a Me Too and falsely accuse these men of doing something to her that they did not do so that she can get her way. As a feminist or whatever you are you going to overlook that? There is so much stuff to break down here. First and foremost, is it sexist? Last time I checked, there are more men involved in the lawsuit than there are women. Is it sexism? But wait, you all aren't saying that the lawsuit itself is sexism or misogyny. You're saying all the people who seem to be happy or their reaction to it is misogyny. But let's put aside the fact that the lawsuit is from a freaking woman, but we're going to ignore that. Let's focus on the fact that you all, like one lady was claiming that what if these things end up not being true? The damage is already done.
The saddest part about this lawsuit against Joy Taylor and Fox Sports is that it's going to do significant damage, even if all of it is a lie. Obviously, this can be true in a lot of cases. For example, someone is falsely accused of stealing. If it turns out that they are in fact innocent, people might still look at them sideways, even though it's been proven they didn't do it. But you see, people have always been pretty skeptical of women in sports. There's always been a little bit of a questioning, a doubt as to their ability, their knowledge, their expertise. And that was already lingering in the background. And I think this lawsuit, even if it comes out that Joy Taylor never did this, it's not helping. Going back to my analogy about the falsely accused thief, right? It could have been a really, really upstanding citizen. No one thought anything badly about them. And then the accusation hits versus they were already considered shady, people were already looking at them sideways, and then the accusation hits. Even if they're proven to be innocent, you're still...
Do you know how many men that happens to? How many of you all are coming out screaming and whining and crying about how the damage is done to a lot of men who are accused of things? I don't hear you. There are men that are involved in this lawsuit, but you weren't talking about the men that's involved in the lawsuit. You're not saying the same thing for Charlie Dixon. You're not saying the same thing for Skip Bayless. Why? Because they're white men? Why? Because they're old? Why? Because they're men? This is mind-blowing to me. You all say it's hard enough for black women to get into the business of sports. It's already hard enough. And a lot of times, if you do have women, let alone black women, to make it into sports, they're on the sideline somewhere. Wait, and then there's some sort of stereotype that they have to get over, because it's typically said that they only got their job not because they're qualified, but because they're pretty.
Because it's
Blake Lively full of shit.
what I'm saying is the publicist said this also happened because people are so quickly to turn on a woman. That is something that is true.
Yeah.
It's the low hanging fruit. And we're seeing it happen right now. I just want to be particular the uphill battle that this does to a woman, specifically a black woman in a male dominated field. There are very few women working in sports and even fewer black women. Joy is one of the few black women working in sports who has a coveted in-studio position. Most of the people you see who are black women working in sports are on the sideline.
Sideline reporters.
You can count on one hand how many people are in studio, let alone hosting, leading a show in studio, talking about not just one sport, multiple sports. There's always been this stereotype about women in sports in male-dominated spaces, but we'll stick with sports, particularly in sports, where they're not qualified to have the positions that they have, that they're getting it because they're pretty, and those women are always having to prove their ability. They're having to show how talented, how knowledgeable they are, and they have to prove their track record constantly. Joy Taylor is somebody who's had to do that, and she is extremely knowledgeable about the sports that she discusses, and she's very talented.
Newsflash, that's the truth. Just like I say, not all of them, but there are diversity hires. That's the truth. Just because I'm black don't mean that's not true. That's the freaking truth. Here's proof. Sure, being pretty is subjective, but here's an easy way to figure that out. Name how many women you see on sports media that are not attractive, that most people would not agree is attractive. Sure, it's up to the individual. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but we know beauty when we see it. Now, whether we choose that person is our type or not, so be it. But we know beauty when we see it. Like, I don't care if you're a feminist or not. You have to be objectively true here. If it's really about hard work, which is what Joy Taylor was trying to push, that's the message she was trying to push.
But I also knew that I had to prove myself, and much like Taylor said, every day. And there's no room for error. There's no room for mistakes. You can't say a name wrong. You can't get a stat wrong. And I'm in the opinion space, so you definitely can't get anything wrong, because everyone assumes that you are saying this, you mean this. So, but you know what? I don't have any bitterness about it. Was always going to be a hard business to break into and to separate. And I feel really grateful to be able to work in the business. I feel like everything that I've accomplished in the business gives me a seat at the table that is met with respect.
If it was really about hard work, then why is it that she show up to interviews with so much of her chest out? Why is it that she's on the sports show that she's supposed to be qualified and know so much about? Why does she have so much of her cleavage out? Why? But in the name of feminism, you're going to say that she's allowed to do that because she's a woman because of her gender, when first and foremost, you all can't even define what a woman is. You know, how do you know she's a woman? But she can show up on television at her job, which is her job, that's her work, with 40-50% of her cleavage out, extremely tight clothes, at one point in time, even as a married woman. And you're going to say there's nothing wrong with that because she's a woman. But you can criticize a million things that a man does, but she can show up in unprofessional clothing, club setting clothing, and it's totally fine. Now that this lawsuit has come out by a freaking woman, you all are still claiming misogyny and sexism. Make it make sense.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.